Hello, and welcome back again to my reading in the forest with our book, Forest Folklore. Oh yeah, we're on page 115. I'm just setting up my camera here. There we go. Let's see. All right, we're looking into the forest downwards. That leads way down. If you continue climbing down it further and further and further, you come to a creek, a little creek going down. It gets very steep, and climbing back up it is wild. But I like this spot I'm in. I'm going to stay here in this area for now. I'm going to try to finish off this chapter. I'm opening up a bottle of Diet Coke. That is cold and refreshing. And we are on page 115 of Mythical Denizens. I don't know if we will do it, but I'm going to try to finish this chapter today. It will be a longer video, but as this book goes on, the chapters become longer and longer and longer. So let's see how we do in this area. I'm not sure if this has an ant house or anything. I don't see any ants right now. Some spots in these forests have quite a lot of red fire ants. And those bites really sting, I tell ya. So anywho, wow, look at this rock over here. I have to show you. I absolutely love trees growing on rocks. And look at this, it's completely covered in moss. And they're growing up so tall on it. I love it. Okay, let's see. Put you back over here. And let's get back into the book. So let's see here. I may repeat a little from the last one, but let's see. Certain young and lovely nymphs who dwelt in forests and groves were known as dryads, and they were the companions and attendants of the huntress goddess Artemis. In the Orlando Furioso, it is said that Rinaldo saw one in the enchanted forest, where an aged oak beside him cleft and rent, and from his fertile hollow womb forth went, clad in rare weeds and strange habiliment, a full-grown nymph. It was considered unlucky to see the dryads or to keep company with them, and Ovid, in the 4th book of the Fastas, warned Pales not to see the dryads or Diana bathing or faunas when wandering through the fields at midday. As distinguished from the dryads who, though having their abodes in trees and groves, were free to move about, was another class of beings known as hamadryads, or purely tree nymphs who dwelt in trees, were believed to be part of the tree and whose existence was closely bound up with that of the tree. In fact, it was believed that the hamadryad was female only to the waist, her lower extremities forming as the mermaid was female to the waist, the rest of her being a fish's tail. These hamadryad trees were also said to grow only in remote and secluded spots where men were unlikely to discover them. They seem, however, to have been pretty well known in other parts, as there are frequent allusions to them by the ancient poets. When their tree withers and dies, the hamadryads also cease to be, and when their tree happens to be cut down, a cry of anguish escapes them as the axe descends. Homer, in the Hymn to Aphrodite, has a very full description of them. The goddess is represented when she informs Anchises of her pregnancy and how she is ashamed of its being known to the gods, as saying of the unborn child, "But him, when first he sees the sun's clear light, the nymphs shall rear, the mountain-haunting nymphs, deep-bosomed, who on this mountain great and holy dwell, who neither goddesses nor women are. Their life is long. They eat ambrosial food, and with the deathless frame the beauteous dance. With them in the recess of lovely caves, well spying Argo's slayer, and the Selene mix in love. Straight pines or oaks, high-headed spring with them upon, the earth man feeding, soon as they are born. Trees fair and flourishing, on the high hills lofty they stand, the deathless sacred grove, men call them, and with iron never cut. But when the fate of death is drawing near, when first wither on the earth the beauteous trees, the bark around them wastes, the branches fall, and the nymph's soul at that same moment leaves the sun's fair light." Mr. Kitely quotes the following two legends in the Argonautica of Apollonius Rhodius. Phineas explains that the poverty of Peribios was due to a crime committed by his father. For one time, cutting trees alone among the hills, he spurned the prayer of the Hamadryas nymph, who, weeping sore with earnest words, besought him not to cut the trunk of an oak tree, which with herself coeval had endured for many a year. But in the pride of youth he foolishly cut it, and to him and his race the nymph gave ever after a lot of profitless. Also the following tale from Chiron of Lampsacos. A man named Rhocos, happening to see an oak just ready to fall to the ground, ordered his slaves to prop it up. The nymph, who had been on the point of perishing with the tree, came to him and expressed her gratitude to him for having saved her life, and at the same time desired him to ask what reward he would. Rhoecos then requested her to permit him to be her lover, and the nymph acceded to his desire. She at the same time charged him strictly to avoid the society of every other woman, and told him that a bee should be her messenger. One time the bee happened to come to Rhoecos as he was playing at draughts, and he made a rough reply. This so incensed the nymph that she deprived him of sight. Ovid writes in a similar strain thus: "Within the grove of Ceres towered an oak, huge in the bulk and strength of centuries, itself a grove, and up its massy trunk, midway, fresh wreaths and floral offerings hung votive. Oft under it the dryads whirled in festive dances, and with linked hands clipped its dark bowl, which filled the utmost grasp of nymphs thrice 5. As far the encircling wood was under it, as the uncropped herbage lay beneath that wood, yet the Thessalian foe his axe withheld not. As he swung oblique its fatal edge, shuddered the sacred tree, and moaned. Each leaf, each acorn at the stroke grew pallid, chill damp started on each bough, and when that impious hand the wounded trunk smote deep, blood flowed from forth its cloven rind, as when a noble steer, a victim, drops at the altars, and swift gushing purple life his neck disdains. All in deep stupor gazed, when, issuing from beneath the riven oak, this voice resounded, I, the nymph most dear to Ceres, bleed within her sacred tree, and dying I foretell a direful doom for thy fell deed impending. Thus I find in death my solace. Yet the criminal his work still urges, till the umbrageous mass, tottering from countless blows and dragged by ropes, falls crashing, crushing half the subject grove. Arcadia, with its woods and mountains, was the favorite haunt, along with the dryads, of the rustic god Pan. Was said to have been the son of Hermes or Mercury by a nymph of Arcadia. One of the ancient writers, Servius, described him as being formed in the likeness of nature, inasmuch as he had horns to resemble the rays of the sun and the horns of the moon, that his face was ruddy in imitation of the other, that he wore a spotted fawn skin resembling the stars in the sky, that his lower limbs were hairy because of trees and wild beasts, that he had feet resembling those of the goat to show the stability of the earth, that his pipe had 7 reeds in accordance with the harmony of heaven, which was said to contain 7 sounds, that his pastoral staff bore a crook in reference to the year which curves back on itself, and finally that he was the god of all nature. The occupations of Pan were many and various, whether he was roaming on the mountains, pursuing game in the valleys, or playing on his pipes in the groves, which music was often heard by travelers through the woods. The Arcadians called him the Lord of the Woods. Often loud and incomprehensible noises were heard among the mountains, which gave to the timid a kind of superstitious terror, that these being ascribed to Pan gave rise to apprehensions which are now known as panic. Pan had many amours among the nymphs, who however invariably fled from his ill-favored appearance, and in many cases they were saved from him by being transformed into trees. A legend mentioned by Nicander tells of a shepherd named Terambos who possessed many flocks and who was much loved by Pan and also by the nymphs, the latter assisting him in looking after his flocks. Pan on one occasion warned him that a severe winter was coming and advised him to drive his flocks down into the plains. Terambos derided this advice, but the prophecy was too truly fulfilled, all the flocks being destroyed, and he himself was changed by the nymphs into a cockchafer. Not really sure what that is, but I'm showing you the word. Pan has been looked upon as one of the satyrs, who were rough and shaggy beings, goat-like, and of a somewhat demoniacal character. They were closely connected with Dionysus, and formed part of his bacchanalian train. Fauns were the Italian counterpart of the Greek satyrs, and an altar to Pan was erected in the grove below the Palatine Hill, where it was said Romulus and Remus were suckled by the wolf. H. Usner, in his Italische Mythen, speaks of 2 malignant female wood spirits, named respectively Stradelle, which appears to mean a witch, and Stratelli, meaning a nightmare. It is believed, particularly on the shores of the Lake of Lucerne, that these have an adverse influence on the fruit-bearing trees. So in order to frighten them away, a certain ceremony is carried out on 12th night. On that night, the boys of the village walk in a procession, making hideous noises with horns, cowbells, and other sonorous articles, believing that if sufficient noise is not made, the fruit crop will be very scanty in the ensuing year. A wood spirit named Picus, believed to have been a son of Saturn, was said to have assisted the wolf in nursing the babes Romulus and Remus. Another legend says that Picus was a mighty hunter and one day went to the chase arrayed in purple garments and wearing a golden collar. When so engaged, he met the enchantress Circe in a wood, who fell in love with him. He, however, spurned her, whereupon she changed him into a woodpecker, whose plumage is purple with a ring of yellow feathers round its neck. In Sicily, several curious superstitions have gathered around the fig tree, because it is there believed to have been the tree on which Judas hanged himself, and never to have flowered since. It is therefore thought to be a tree of ill omen. Each leaf, it is said, harbors an evil spirit or devil, and in addition, certain bloodthirsty spirits or demons, called faunae ficari, frequent its neighborhood. At Avola, it is considered to be imprudent to rest in the shade of a fig tree during the warm hours of the summer days. To whoever cares to run, the risk will appear a female dressed as a nun and holding a knife in her hand. She will ask him to say whether he will take the knife by the point or the handle. If he says by the point, he will be at once killed, but if he says by the handle, he will be successful in all he undertakes. In fact, in this island it is believed to be unsafe to sleep under any tree on the eve of St. John, as on that night, which is the shortest night of the year, the spirits and the demons of the trees leave their sylvan abodes and enter the first object they see, which might well be the sleeper. Similarly, the Albanians believe certain trees to be haunted by devils, which they name Eriko, and which particularly haunt the cherry tree when it becomes old and barren. The very shadow of these trees is believed to be evil and to cause swellings and pains in the hands and feet. The peasants who live on the slopes of Mount Etna avoid sleeping under the trees, particularly on St. John's night, lest they should be beset by the devil. If, however, it happens that they have occasion to sleep there, they must first cut a branch from off the tree, or as they say, sagneri larvulu, bleed the tree. In ancient Chaldea, there were 7 evil spirits or demons known as maskams, and against these in particular, the white cedar was considered to be an infallible protection. Though it was useful against all other evil spirits and spells, ancient Chaldean writings revealed that the white cedar is the tree which breaks the maskam's noxious might. One of the hymns to the sun commences, O sun, I have called unto thee in the bright heavens, in the shadow of the cedar art thou, meaning that the sun causes the cedar to cast a shadow which is as holy as the tree itself. In Arabia, certain demons known as jinns frequent waste and desert places, as well as the neighborhood of trees and groves, and particularly the dense untrodden thickets which generally occupy the bottom of the valleys. Some of these do good, others do evil, being in this respect similar to the Peris and Deves of the Persians. There is an Arab legend of 2 men who lived a generation before Mohammed. They had set fire to a wild and tangled thicket, intending to bring the ground under cultivation. The legend says that the jinns flew away in the form of white serpents, uttering doleful cries and as the 2 men died soon after, it was believed that these demons had slain them because they had set fire to their dwelling place. A malignant demon or Dev called Siltum haunts the forests of Persia, appearing in human form and doing injury to man. Moore in Lalla Rookh says of the enchantress Namuna, all spells and talismans she knew, from the great mantra which around the air's sublimer spirits drew, to the gold gems of Afrique bound upon the wandering Arab's arm, to keep him from the Sultan's harm. What may be looked upon as the fairies of Persia are known as Peris, whose food is perfume, while the demons bear the name of Devs. Between these 2 sets of spirits there is constant warfare, in which, according to Persian legend, the Peris invariably get the worst of it. It is said that the Devs, when they capture any of the Peris, enclose them in iron cages which they hang from the tops of the highest trees. Here they are visited by their companions, who bring them the choicest perfumes for their nourishment, and these perfumes also repel the Devs, to whom fragrant odors are obnoxious. Mr. Kitely mentions a Persian romance which relates how a merchant's son of a city in Hindostan, assuming the dress of a wandering dervish, went away from his native place. After traveling for some time, he was overcome with fatigue and rested at the foot of a tree beside a pool. While resting, as the sun was setting, 4 doves alighted from a tree on the edge of the pool and were at once transformed into Peris. They disrobed and commenced to bathe. He quickly took possession of their garments and concealed in a hollow tree, behind which he retired. When the Peris had finished bathing, they were much distressed at the disappearance of their clothes. They looked for them everywhere in vain. At length they discovered the young man and conjectured that he had taken them, whereupon they implored him to restore them. He consented on the condition that one of them should become his wife. This was agreed to, and he took his bride home, but he carefully concealed her Perry raiment so that she would be unable to leave him. After the lapse of 10 years, he again had occasion to travel and left the Peri in charge of an old woman, to whom he had revealed the secret of his wife's real nature, and also showed her where he had concealed the Peri raiment. During his absence, the Peri cajoled the old woman to bring her garments, that, as she said, I may wear them for an instant and show thee my native beauty. No sooner, however, had she them on than she called out, "Farewell," and, ascending to the sky, vanished from sight. In India, certain spirits, known as Vanadavadas, are supposed to preside over the trees in which they make their home, and many of the Buddhist legends refer to their intervention in human life. In some districts, wood spirits are believed to dwell in the summits of trees, and should these trees be cut down, they will take revenge on the aggressor. There are white female spirits called Sankchinis, which inhabit trees, and at the feet of which, at midnight, they may often be seen standing. A Brahmin's wife was once attacked by one who shut her up in a cavity in the trunk of the tree. In the early days of Buddhism, there was much controversy as to whether trees had souls or not, and it was finally decided that they had not, though at the same time as it was admitted that certain spirits called Dewas, or genii of the trees, did reside in the trunks of trees and spoke from within them. Some trees, such as the sal tree, pipal tree, and mahau tree, are the abodes of evil spirits, and to propitiate them, offerings are made to the trees, and no one will venture to climb them. Some large and very old trees in Travancore are inhabited by demons and are held sacred. It would be considered very dangerous to cut these down. An Indian legend refers to a banyan tree, which was the abode of numerous spirits who were said to wring the necks of all persons who approached their tree during the night. The nomadic tribe of the Bills believed in a forest giant called Mowa, or Mowoa, who provides them with wood, bread, and the water of life. While in the Nilgiri Hills, a forest spirit, or a kind of fawn known as Batakan, resides, who hunts the wild beasts and is greatly revered. There are certain demons or devils known as Pashashas, which are held in dread all over India. When women and others move about the forest, traveling from village to village, they believe these demons to be everywhere around them, and they endeavor to propitiate them with all sorts of articles laid here and there in crevices, sacred stones, and hollow trees. Pregnant women, especially in Malabar when traveling, carry a scrap of iron or a few leaves or twigs of the neem tree to scare away the demons which are always lurking in the woods or groves they must pass on their way. Two demons or monsters known respectfully as Chutas or Butus and Pakakas have their abodes in the trees of the forest. There is a goddess called Sarna Burhi, or the woman of the grove, known in Bengal, to whom is dedicated a sacred grove called the Sarna, in which she is supposed to dwell. This grove is a remnant of the primeval Sal forest. Some of the aboriginal races of India believe that the spirits of the dead haunt the forests and have their abodes in the trees, and the leaves of some trees in particular are used as charms against them. Certain kinds of elves and nymphs would appear to have had existence in India. In a legend, it is recorded that a youth named Satyavant, while endeavoring to cut down a tree, mortally wounded the elf who inhabited the tree, and as her life ebbed away, so likewise did his. In the Buddhist legend, says Professor de Gubernatus, where the imprisoned sages in the center of the ocean throw up fire and storm against the trees which threaten to cover all the earth, these trees have a double character. creator and destroyer. It is a form of the myth of the deluge. The indignation of the sages is unlimited, so the god Soma interposes. The sages then collect themselves and dream, like Manu in the Brahmin legend, of repeopling the earth by uniting themselves with Marisha, who is the daughter of a nymph, of the moisture deposited by a nymph on the leaves of the trees. The wild huntsman of Germany has his counterpart in India, as one of the Vedic hymns addressed to the storm gods known as Maruts or Rudras says, "They shake with their strength all beings, even the strongest on earth and in heaven. Mighty you are, powerful of wonderful splendor, firmly rooted like mountains, yet lightly gliding along you chew up forests like elephants. The Padams of Assam think that if a child has strayed and been lost, it has been stolen by the forest spirits. To force the spirits to give up the child, they commence to fell the trees until the spirits, fearing that no tree will be left for them, return the child, which is usually found lying in the fork of a tree. The Miras of Assam dread offending the forest spirits by felling their trees to obtain new patches of ground for cultivation, and accordingly they use the ground they have already cleared as long as it is possible to grow crops on it. In Burma and Siam, the trees are believed to be inhabited by spirits, and the natives of both countries are afraid to cut down any tree lest they incur the wrath of the spirits domiciled there. In fact, the En tribes of Upper Burma say that if a tree is felled, a man dies. In Burma, some of these spirits are known as kaluks, to whom, before cutting down a tree, the Burmese offer prayers. They say they always know a spirit or demon to be in the trees whenever the leaves tremble without any visible cause. The general name in Burma for tree spirits is nats, and of these there are 4 different kinds. 3 of these live in different parts of the tree. Thus, the akakaso dwells in the topmost branches of the tree. The shekaso dwells in the trunk, while the bumaso has his abode among the roots. The 4th is a wood spirit or demon called Hamen, who ranges at large throughout the forest and seems to be the fever or ague demon, as it is said that he violently shakes all those whom he meets. As in many other tropical countries, when fever or ague attacks one in the jungle, it is believed to be the work of this demon or of another called Phi, and certain ceremonies are gone through to exorcise it. One is that the victim must place an offering beside the tree he last rested under, from the branches of which the malaria fiend had descended upon him. The Siamese consider the tree spirits to be a kind of nymph, whom they style mothers of trees. When they cut down a tree and build a boat from its wood, they believe that these spirits enter into it, and sacrifices are accordingly made to the boat itself. The Samoyeds of Siberia say that little elves haunt the woods and streams, and these again are ruled by a great spirit, the forest spirit and the river spirit, respectively. Ancient Japanese beliefs gave souls to trees, and the grotesque and gnarled trunks of many an ancient tree in the forests of Japan may even yet in some cases appear as menacing spirits to the wanderer in the shades. The Japanese woodcutter had an unspeakable dread when he found himself belated in the gloom of the wood and saw a spectre or demon in every contorted trunk. Many legends of Japan speak of cedars having centuries of age, which are still so vital that when the axe falls on them, drops of blood often ooze out from the cuts. After Korea regained its independence from Japan, the event was celebrated, but the king proceeded in state to a dark pine wood wherein was situated the altar of the spirits of the land, the most sacred altar in Korea, and there taking an oath before the spirits of his ancestors to inaugurate certain reforms. In Korea, the belief in malignant demons is very widespread, and every old and gnarled tree is supposed to be the residence of one of them. Mrs. Bishop says that near Seoul, heaps of stones sacred to demons are placed under large trees, and that tall posts with rudely carved human faces are placed on each side of the road with straw ropes stretched across. the idea being to prevent the ingress of malignant spirits. It is believed that if a person dies of the pestilence or by the roadside, their spirit takes up its abode in a tree, and certain ancient and contorted trees are looked upon as the residences of the spirits of those people who have died before attaining 60 years of age. And it also seems to be believed that they had died owing to the evil influence exercised by the evil spirit of the tree. In Korean belief, every shady tree harbors a demon, and shrines to them are erected under the shadow of large trees. These demons are exorcised by certain blind wizards who are called pansu, and parts of the ceremony are performed by the aid of two magic wands, one of oak or pine, and the other a special one made from the eastern branch of a peach tree. There is a famous altarpiece in a monastery at Yuchomsa. I'll show you that word because I can't pronounce it very well, which represents the upturned roots of a tree, among which 53 idols appear. Below them are carved 3 fearful-looking dragons. Mrs. Bishop says the legend of this altarpiece is that 53 priests came from India to introduce Buddhism, and when they reached this spot, they sat down under a great tree beside a well. 3 dragons emerged from the well and attacked the priests, who also invoked a mighty wind, which tore up the tree, leaving the roots exposed. Each priest then placed an image of Buddha on each root, which thus became an altar. In the end, the dragons were defeated, thrown into the well, and great stones were placed on top of it. The priests then built a temple over the wall and founded the monastery. The Chinese believe in a species of being which they call shenxin, which hunt the forests and the mountains. They appear to be an inoffensive race, dwelling in a state of peaceful beatitude, but yet exercising a certain benign influence over the affairs of humanity. Occasionally they may be seen in the shape of old men with long beards, while in other cases they appear as fair young maidens, sauntering at ease among the moonlit forest glades. The natives of the Malay Peninsula and of the Malay archipelago have an implicit belief in all sorts of forest spirits and forest demons. Such is their awe and reverence for the forest that no native will dare to enter it alone, and must always have a companion. To him the forest is the abode of evil and supernatural beings who are ever on the lookout to do him injury, and in consequence, before entering the forest, he repeats the following invocation to avert their wrath. Peace unto ye all. I come as a friend, not as an enemy. I come to seek my living, not to make war. May no harm come to me, nor mine, to my wife, my children, or my home, because I intend no harm nor evil. I ask that I may come and go in peace. The farther they penetrate into the forest, they become all the more assiduous in their incantations. The general name for these spirits of the forest is Hantu, Hutan. The general name for these spirits of the forest is Hantu Hutan, and they are equally dreaded with the tiger and other wild beasts. There are different varieties of them, the names of some being Jentana, or spirits of the earth, having power over the forest and all its inhabitants. Dirgasi, great-tusked giants or ogres, no doubt originating in the elephant or some remote ancestor of his, and orang bunyi, or voice folk, spirits whom all may hear but none may see. These latter invisible supernatural people inhabit the forest, and in one place there is a cave which is supposed to be their home. Their voice is said to be very similar to the human voice, and they are often heard calling to each other in the forest depths, which may easily be mistaken for the tones of a human voice in distress. Tales are often told of those who, under this impression, have answered the call and proceeded towards the voice, but having once done so, they could not retrace their steps. The unfortunate one is lured ever farther on into the dark recesses until at last the voice folk become invisible to him, and his doom is to become one of them and invisible to man, only his voice betokening his presence. There is a demon named Boda who frequents a district on the Parak River, who causes travelers to see visions of wondrous palaces and ravishingly beautiful females, which give promise of all sorts of entrancing delights. However, when the dawn appears, the unhappy traveler finds himself faint and in a dying condition in some gloomy thicket, with all the promised joys vanished. In Perak, there is a very fine and large tree called the toalang, the sap of which is poisonous and produces intense irritation if it touches the skin. Curious hollow excrescences are found on the trunks of many of these trees, to the point where a branch has been broken off. These excrescences are considered by the Malays to be the abodes of the tree spirits, and nothing will induce them to cut down such a tree, because they say the spirits will be much offended, and the man who cuts one down will die within a year. Mr. Maxwell in Malay Forests gives an interesting account of the old pagan religion which has now been superseded by Mohammedanism, and tells how the pawangs, or sorcerers, in their offices as priests fulfill their duties. He particularly mentions the method pursued during a deer drive in the Malay forests, in which ropes, called sedins, with many nooses are used. These are stretched in long lines through the forest, from tree to tree, under the superintendence of the pawang. The latter carefully selects the trees and invokes the forest spirits thus: "Hail, all hail, Father to the sky, brother to the water. I crave permission to enter on your domain and to tie my nooses to this tree." Numerous incantations are uttered to propitiate the evil spirits. Also prayers to the various trees to which the ropes are tied, and likewise instructions to the deer to pass along the right line. This being done, if all goes well, several deer are captured. Various other ceremonies are gone through at the end to propitiate the forest spirits, which are thought to be waiting to avenge the death of the deer. When a Malay desires to become invulnerable, he retires to the innermost recesses of the forest, and there spends 3 days in solitude. Should he, on the 3rd day, dream that a beautiful spirit has come and spoken to him, his desire is considered to be fulfilled. A bunch of little birdies have just shown up around me in the trees, and some squirrels too. They came from down farther on the hill, up this way. I wonder if that's just what they do this time of day, or if there is another animal climbing up the hill. All right, so onward with the book for now. Some of the most interesting spirits which haunt the forests of the Malay Peninsula are those which preside over the camphor trees in the extensive camphor forests of that region. The natives believe that unless they propitiate these spirits, they will be unable to obtain any camphor. The form which this propitiation takes is that of employing a single kind of language when engaged in the camphor search, which usually occupies them for 3 or 4 months. The language used is a mixture of ancient, obsolete dialects with Malayan words perverted from their original meaning. This language is known as the Bahasa Kapur, or camphor language. Thus, the camphor is never referred to by its proper name, but by words meaning the thing that smells. A similar language is used in the camphor forests of Borneo and Sumatra, and other islands of the Malay archipelago, and is used at other times than on the occasions of camphor gathering. The natives usually feel very uncomfortable when wandering through these great primeval forests, for they know that if they are unfortunate enough to offend the forest spirits by using words which are offensive to them, some evil will assuredly ensue. Thus, if fine weather is desired to be continued, the word rain must not be uttered, as if it is the rain spirit will hear it, and, thinking he is wanted, will put in an appearance. Indeed, in some parts which are liable to heavy storms, the word must never in any circumstances be mentioned. Otherwise, a hurricane will be the result. A similar kind of language is used among the Chams and Orang Lai of Indochina, when they are searching for eagle wood. And the aborigines of Malacca must do the same when searching for the gaharu tree or lignum aloes. This tree possesses a guardian spirit called Hantu Gaharu, who must have a human victim in exchange for the tree. Mr. A.D.F. Hervey says that when a man has found one of these trees and dreams that Hantu Gaharu demands a victim, he endeavors to find someone asleep and smears his forehead with lime. The spirit, seeing this, takes the soul of the sleeper away. In other words, the victim dies, and the dreamer gets his aloes wood. Tree demons, properly speaking, are called Hantu Kayu, and are found in every species of tree, with some trees particularly noted for the malignancy of the demons which inhabit them, and these afflict mankind with all manner of diseases. Oh, what a pretty little bird. So sweet. Aww. A spectral huntsman, very similar to the wild huntsman of Germany and other countries, ranges the Malay forests. He travels with a pack of ghostly dogs, and whenever he is seen He travels with a pack of ghostly dogs, and whenever he is seen, sickness or death is sure to follow. Certain night-flying birds, whose note is loud and peculiar, are believed to be his attendants. When their weird cry is heard, the peasants run, and making a clatter with a knife on a wooden platter, and cry, "Great-grandfather, bring us their hearts." The huntsman believes they are his own followers, asking a share of his bag. So he passes on, leaving them unharmed, and the tumult of the wild hunt gradually dies away. The forests of the various islands of the Malay archipelago are similarly haunted by spirits and demons. In some of the eastern islands, the natives, before felling a sacred tree, drive nails of gold or silver into its trunk to warn the spirit to leave before its abode is hewn down. In Borneo and Sumatra, certain trees are believed to be inherited by spirits and must on no account be cut down. While in Sumatra, in particular, old and venerable trees are considered to be the actual frame of the spirit. In some parts of Borneo, these spirits are looked upon as the souls of the dead. The Dayaks of Borneo believe the forests to be full of goblins who are ever at enmity with them and who assume various weird shapes at will. If a Dayak has been walking solitary in the forest, he considers it probable that one of these goblins has stolen his soul, although he is not conscious of the loss. To guard himself, however, before he leaves the forest, he makes a point of asking that his soul be returned to him, after which he goes away with a lightened heart. Among the Lubus of Sumatra, the wandering spirits of the dead, known as Soamangats, I'll show you that word, are held in particular dread. There are several methods employed to avoid their unwelcome attentions. Should a man have lost his way in the forest, he knows that this is due to one of these evil spirits who had been following him and casting spells upon him. To throw the spirit off the track, he splits a rattan and creeps through the opening. This done, the rattan immediately closes, and the spirit is considered to be baffled in its pursuit. We are on page 132, And I will have to stop reading there. This is a very long chapter, a very good chapter, but very long. And I will continue reading this chapter soon. What a beautiful place. So many little birds. I must pack my bag and make my way back out.